My name's Dona Arcara, and my hobby is genealogy. I think for most of my life I would have considered genealogy a really boring endeavor, but I had zero interest in it. I've never been a student of history, and but when my father got older, after my grandfather had passed away, my father got older, I started doing it just as a way to have something to bond with him. Then when he passed away and I started really just kind of carrying the family torch of doing genealogy, I guess the light just kind of turned on, and I developed my own obsession with the stories that you start uncovering when you do the genealogy. What I like to do is I like to have a binder for every interesting person I run across and collect everything about them. And when I write it, instead of writing it up as a really dry subject, I like to tell it as a story and give voice to that person. I tell you, there are a couple of extremely interesting surprises I have found doing genealogy. In particular, there are some women who I have found in my family history who have led the most fascinating lives, and I had no idea. But the one I think that has been on my mind so much lately actually has a connection with Tuscaloosa, and her name was Emily Sanders. When I came across her, she had been a secret relative in the family. None of us knew of her existence. Nobody talked about her, because when she was 25 years old, she was committed to Bryce, and at the time it was called the Alabama Insane Hospital. She was committed there at age 25, and she lived there until she was 86 years old at her death. It was not unusual back then for women to be declared insane when they weren't insane, and she was not insane. She was declared insane and put away to get her out of the community because there was a problematic thing that had happened. She lived in the Jim Crow South. She had a biracial baby with a man that she was raising, children with, and she had a biracial baby. And some of the people in the community, there was a big problem with it. There was a race riot over it, and it got coverage from coast to coast. And another thing about doing genealogy is I would have never found all this if I hadn't had access to newspaper records now. So I started reading about this relative I didn't know I had, and then finding out she was in a race riot, and her punishment for having this biracial baby was to put her in an insane asylum, declare her insane, and never again the rest of her life would she have her freedom or any power over anything that happened in her life. She was kept a secret from the family, and she lived there until her death. And she worked in the ironing room for 60 years. She ironed. And I think one of the things that keeps this passion alive about genealogy is, now on my bucket list is to tell her story and to give her voice, just to give her experience a voice, because she's been forgotten in history. So for me, it's not about the charts and all that. It's about the stories of real people that lived, and that just brings it home. That's what makes it an interesting hobby.